Hey, thanks for joining us today. This video is going to cover the tax news for the last couple weeks since our last video, and we've added over 250,000 properties to Parcel Fair in that time. A lot of states that have annual auctions have dropped their properties for the year or in the process of dropping their properties. So we have some big increases on the auction side, some new over-the-counters, and other things to discuss. And we're going to take this market by market, state by state. If you want to jump between states, just look at the bottom of the video on YouTube, and you will see chapter markers. You can use those to jump to whatever state you'd like to see. On that note, let's talk about our market totals. In the last couple of weeks, we've added 256,790 properties. The vast majority of those being tax liens, 251,750 tax liens, almost 4,000 tax deeds, a little over 1,000 foreclosures, and just over 100 land bank properties. If we break that down by state, Florida had the most foreclosures, over 600, Colorado roughly 400, Indiana took a dip, only had 24. We're not sure why, but it just seems like they have less to advertise in this period. Over the counter wise, Arizona added 9,152 properties, but it's a little misleading here. Those were actually removed and added back. These are not necessarily net new over the counter properties, so don't get too excited about Arizona without thinking that through first. They're still over the counter, but they are not necessarily new. Alabama had 464, very similar story there. They actually removed some properties. We think they've changed some legal descriptions from our understanding and then put them back on the site. Colorado, a little over 400 over-the-counter properties. And Maryland, 276. A handful of properties scattered across Tennessee, Mississippi, and Arkansas, mainly because those three states just sort of released throughout the year gradually. And lastly here, our tax auction breakdown. Florida is definitely the marquee headline with 233,062 tax liens added so far to this auction season. This is their annual tax lien auction season, and we don't even have all the advertisements in yet. Some of them are still being updated, added, or otherwise released. So you're going to see more to come, even probably by the time you watch this video. Maryland is mid-season, and we're looking at another 5,309 properties that were just added. There are still a few that we're waiting on to be released, and that would round out their spring season at least. Alabama had a couple more counties released here at the end. Pike and Montgomery have released, so that gave a nice 2,523 properties. New Jersey had at least two big auctions drop with 1,500 new properties. Oklahoma is now in season. Arkansas is we added like 6,000 last week, and then another 723 this week off of one late release that got tweaked. Utah is also somewhat in season now with more to come. And Ohio, North Carolina, New Mexico, Virginia, the bottom four here, those are pretty much year-round markets. So it totals out to 245,372 tax auction properties. And when we're talking about auctions, we are adding these auctions daily. The auctions are added, the properties are added, redemptions are being tracked. And so right now in the moment, we have 1,351 upcoming auctions. We've already tracked over 5,000 auctions this year, but if you want to see what's available right now for you to research, 1,351 auctions are available for you on Parcel Fair. And let's put that in perspective on your season here. We'll just simplify it and say this giant red chunk are these states that are in season right now, the ones that have annual auctions scheduled. So obviously Maryland's been running for a few months, Alabama. Mississippi is past, but it's in the mix here just because of the dates. Utah and now, of course, the Florida liens have been released. And Oklahoma, we're starting to see those as well. Not to mention Arkansas is coming up this summer. We already have those released on the website. And lastly, don't forget your year-round markets here at the bottom, the New Jerseys, New Mexico, North Carolina, things like that, where you just have auctions flowing year-round. So for our first state, let's talk about Florida for obvious reasons. The tax lien auction season has begun. The first of the advertisements have arrived. Over 230,000 liens added so far, probably even more by the time you watch this video. So we're going to go over that in detail in a moment here, but let's take a pause and remind you there are 52 tax deed auctions scheduled in May. Those run all year. 40 more scheduled already in June. We do track foreclosure auctions for Florida. There are 320 scheduled for May, 268 already for June, and more coming in July, already 156 scheduled. And as if that wasn't enough to go on in Florida, there are also over-the-counter liens and over-the-counter deeds. I will say, if you're buying over-the-counter liens, and this goes for most lien markets across the country, some of the counties either close the books or will be just not as available to purchase over-the-counter liens from. So it may depend on which county you're shopping from. Some of them may have removed their advertisements, or at least aren't taking funds right now for those over-the-counter liens. So here is Florida. We're looking at the tax auction season, tax lien. I'll show you a little trick here in Parcel Fair. This is the auction calendar. We're looking at the Florida rolling calendar. This little selection right here is going to keep your sanity during this season. So the bottom option here is tax lien auctions. And that will remove the deed auctions, the foreclosures, all of those, and let you look at just, you see May and June right here. These are the auctions coming up. And what's great about Florida is every year they put out hundreds of thousands of properties here in lien form. But some of these auctions are very large. You have some in the 20,000s even. So as a tax lien investor, you may find a lot more properties that meet your strategy, meet your criteria. Just quite a few properties to choose from. And you see a few counties still not released yet here. But if you were going to take some of these and look through them, I mean, you really have so much to look at. We'll just take, let's take a large county. Charlotte's large to mid-size here. So 14,000 tax liens. And so what we're looking at, okay, so I'm going to put my county borders on. I clicked on markers and overlays. And I see that's a ton of properties being painted to the screen right now. So if you don't know this county, Charlotte, it's here on the west side, just north of Fort Myers. And quite a bit of property here to look at. This is one of the more interesting areas here. This rotunda, it looks like some kind of hub with spokes coming out of it, and the streets are really interesting the way that's there. So many interesting and weird things in Florida like that. But ultimately, we're just looking at the 14,000 advertised parcels, and let's just do some filtering here. Let's go with the improvements only. That takes it down to 3,000. Wow, that was a big jump. Let's look at over $300,000. That should be 900 properties now. So wow, you can really filter this down if you wanted to. Let's do out-of-state owners, 174. And let's do taxes owed. Let's start at $2,000. So that took a few out. That's the size. That's ultimately the lien is going to cost that much. Remember, Florida, if you're not familiar with the liens there, they are 18% interest-bearing liens, but the auction format is that you bid the interest down. So when you bid that interest down, if it starts at 18%, somebody can bid it all the way down to make 10%, 5%, much lower. And that means the person who buys it, they're still going to pay the same amount of taxes due, but they're just going to receive less interest on it. So there's a ton to look at in Florida here. You should really, if you want to see in-depth Florida investing, we have quite a few videos on that. And, oh wow, so if we look over at the east side of the county, there's actually some large properties here. So we have 677 acres on this one, quite a bit of diversity in property size. So let's just move on here, and you'll notice some of the larger counties, Miami and Orange, Putnam, those are going to be in the 20 to 30,000 property range. And of course, more auctions coming. So yeah, this is just what we're looking at today. But we'll be tracking redemptions for these. You'll see some of them removed. And let me show you one more thing. If you were looking at some of these properties up close, you would click on the details and then go to the upcoming auction like this to see this auction's on Lien Hub. There are several different websites that you host the Florida auctions, and we have links to register, view the information, or see the auction list. That helps you out. Okay, so let's talk about Maryland. They're mid-season right now, and we have 15 upcoming tax lien auctions, and actually that's now some of these are not upcoming anymore because a few of them have already happened in May. But you'll see these are moving into June now. we're just kind of keeping track of these every day. And Washington was released today, so you're going to see more and more of these added. And we did do an extensive video last week about Maryland tax lien auction season and what we knew at the time. So that covered a lot of these auctions in detail, as well as bidding rules and how to plan for these auctions. So check out last week's video if you want to learn more about Maryland. And then we do have the photo video scouting services also in Maryland. So we'll take a brief pit stop over here and take a look at the auction calendar. So the 3 auctions that have completed in May here at the top. And then you'll see some of these auctions, like actually some of these are happening today, have thousands of properties. Some of them are smaller with just 100 or so properties in there. Of course, Baltimore City, the big one every year, is going to have 7,500 parcels available as of right now. There probably will still be some removed. And don't forget, that auction debuted with about 20,000 parcels. So there have been massive redemptions calculated and through the system to get down to 7,500. So if you're researching, you're getting a lot closer at this point to what's going to be in the auction. Moving into June, in Arundel is a pretty big auction with a couple thousand properties, and Washington released today with 711 parcels. So it's a lot going on in Maryland for these tax lien auctions for you to look at. If you want to investigate one of these auctions closer, just click on map or list, depending on what you prefer, and map the properties from that auction. And then you'll see like this. I like to always put my county borders on like that. And let's even look at contrast here. So yeah, this is a nice look at this county right here with the water surrounding most of it. And you can see the property outlines here for what's in the sale. And basically look at it that way. Now, if you want to click the details on this, and there's no Google Street View, it looks like this is a little bit remote, but there are instructions right here for how to bid on the property, where to register, and how to look at the list. Yes, interesting industrial property we chose to look at there. So, and don't forget, in Maryland, there are quite a few over-the-counter options. We have the 2023 over-the-counter liens that we get that paper copy in the mail every month. We have the 2022 leftovers that have moved into Buying to Baltimore's program. And then we have the Buying to Baltimore program that's more like land bank properties. All in all, that's 1,768 OTC liens there. There's other counties with OTCs, just Baltimore City seems to have the most. So Utah, we have 14 auctions. This is our first year really tracking more than just a couple auctions. So 2 of them have already fallen off the board. They happened a few days ago. But upcoming, we have on May 16th, we have 5 auctions coming. Salt Lake is a big one on the 22nd. 23rd, we'll have 4 more auctions, and then 2 more at the end of the month. We're going to keep adding counties as they're released here too. If you have a Utah auction that you would like to see in particular, just let us know. Some of these are so small, and if they are just obscure enough, we don't bother putting them on the site unless someone asks, because it's kind of a waste of time to put it on there if no one's going to shop there. And in states like this, we don't have a ton of users yet that are working there. So please keep us posted. If you want to see an auction in Utah, by all means, let us know. But we'll take a look at the auction calendar in the meantime and see what's available. So you'll notice some of these auctions are pretty small, the 10, 20, 15 properties. And then some of them, let's see, Salt Lake has 103 parcels available. Let's take a look at that one. I'm just mapping out the parcels here. We'll do my usual county borders, and let's turn on the map for contrast. And so yeah, it's a Salt Lake County on the edge of the Great Salt Lake. And you can see some of the properties here. It's always interesting when you find one like this. It looks like the street has gone delinquent. So if you have some type of tax deed strategy that involves neighborhood streets, that might be a good one for you. So let's take a look at something a little more traditional here. We have, looks like it's maybe a commercial property on an acre. And if we want to buy this tax deed or bid on it, we would click on this upcoming auction and follow the instructions to register, and even go click on this button to bid on the actual parcel. This takes you to the parcel, and so if the bidding's in place, you can actually go ahead. Bidding starts May 22nd on this one, but this link would take you to place your bid. So it's a interesting auction season there to look at. If you know Utah, you understand that there are some very remote properties. Let's take a look at, I think Box Elder County was one of the ones that had, up in the corner here. There's a property like this where I literally don't even know what to say about it. There's no roads, no utilities. It's just some land in the middle of nowhere. Several of those to choose from. All right, so switching gears, let's talk about Alabama. We have all the major counties released. Montgomery's even available. Last time we talked about Alabama's first tax lien foreclosure that was completed by Stanley and Associates. We have a video about that where we get to chat with Greg Stanley from Stanley and Associates. Check that out if you want to know more about Alabama tax liens in the new system and how they get foreclosed. There are always resellers adding properties every week. It's usually Thursday, Friday seems to be the day where most of them get added. So I'd recommend keeping an eye on those if you want to buy quickly and don't mind paying a little premium on the property. And we have a handful of Alabama auction videos we already made this season, so we're not going to do that again here, but please check our channel if you want to see some of these in depth, like Mobile or Birmingham or some of those, or even just an auction overview. Those videos will help you, especially understanding how to shop in Alabama between the old system and the new system, which are very different, between tax liens and the other old system, which would get you ultimately a tax deed if it matures. So very different systems, important to understand. If we're looking at our auction, or actually our season here for Alabama, the year-round season, I would put our place marker right here. So we're over the halfway point of the auction season, but still a lot left. I think we have some large ones this week even. So let's go take a look at the auction calendar and see what we have. One thing about Alabama that struck us this year as a little odd was the auctions that were tracking thousands of properties they'd have very few redemptions. And here, Mobile is a great example. There were about 8,000 parcels in this early on. And then at the last minute, right before the auction today, and this actually happened Friday, but the auction's today, 3,000 or 4,000 of those parcels redeemed. So I don't know why so many redemptions came in late, but at the last minute, the numbers plummeted for what was going to auction. And we've seen that in a few counties, so that's not really, it seems to be an Alabama thing actually. But you'll notice the auctions this week really hit big on the 14th with the Jefferson counties and several others. And then they taper through the end of the month. And then into June, we just have the two remaining, Montgomery and Pike. Montgomery was just added today. And this is my first time taking a look at it. So let's go get a aerial tour of the Montgomery auction. Montgomery it's not a suburb of Birmingham by any means. It's actually very much its own county, its own area. It's you'll notice Birmingham is here, and Montgomery is about an hour south. So it's self-contained, has its own job market. It has military bases, a lot of stuff going on in Montgomery. It's actually the capital of the state even. So a lot of people look at Birmingham and really focus around that, but when you're looking at Montgomery, you should think of it as a separate market, not a suburb at all. So this is the spread of the properties. They're just kind of scattered across the city. If we go back to satellite view, this is sort of the downtown area here, and the suburbs spread out around it. So a lot of these are residential houses. Let's go ahead and look at just ones with improvements. There's well over half of them have improvements here. And one quick note, if you wanted to see over the counters in the mix, you could just click all inventories here, and that's going to show you, that'll add in the over-the-counter properties and the ones coming to auction. But today we're talking about this certificate auction coming up on June 5th. If you wanted to take a minimum value of $50,000, that might get you a nice rental property in this market. Let's just do that and look at those 900 properties. Of course, the first one on the list is going to be something more commercial. So we'll skip past that one. And let's check this one out. This is more what I was looking for. Actually, this is much more valuable than what I was looking for. This one's valued at $300,000. And the auction details are here. It is in person because this is one of the last counties, major counties, that is in the old system where they do in-person auctions and sell the tax certificates in the old system. Let's take a panorama view of this house. Very nice neighborhood. Really shocked to see this house in the auction. It's usually not houses this nice. I do see it looks like it was new construction whenever the Google car drove by. So make of it what you will. This is an interesting situation here. Typically, when I go to Montgomery, I don't find anything this nice. So I just say that not to be mean. It's just Montgomery is typically the houses that you see going to auction are not going to be that nice. You're typically going to see something a little more weathered, maybe a little more, well, that's actually heavily weathered because it is now a parking lot. Let's see if I can find a good example here. So, these are actually looking nicer than usual. I feel like I've totally missed the point here. But let's just take a look at this one. So this property valued at $77,000 is probably more of what you would typically see in a tax auction. It's a value that is lower and more likely to actually make it to the auction. Usually the nicer properties, somebody's going to redeem or intervene on behalf of the owner to redeem it ahead of time. So if you wanted to take a property like this and research it, first you'd want to see where the auction is and how much is due, $384. The interesting thing about this old system auction like this is that you will be bidding up the taxes, not bidding down the interest. So when you're bidding up the taxes, you could tie up quite a bit of money at 8% interest rate. And the way that works is you could tie up to 15% of the market value of $77,900. 15% of that you could tie up at 8%. Any dollar you tie up above that, it's going to be 0%. So you will blend your interest down. If you, for instance, if you bid up to 30% of this property value, since that's double 15, you're going to essentially half the interest rate down to 4%, and tie up quite a bit of money at 4% that way. So that's the Montgomery auction, and there's a lot to see here. If you can make it in person, it could be a very rewarding auction for you. Again, people love the old system properties. They mature into tax deeds after 3 years, and you can actually make use of the property while it's still a tax certificate. So there's a lot to be said for the old system in Alabama. So next up, Oklahoma, we're going to touch on briefly. We have added 4 more auctions, more being added daily as they release. We're waiting on some of the big auctions. Actually, Tulsa is one of the ones that we're waiting on here. I have it in the list because we're tracking it, but don't have any properties yet. So there are more counties to come, and a lot like Utah, if there are counties you want to see, please send us your requests, because in some of these, it seems like the western states in particular, we'll get some tiny auctions that are basically photographed into an image, and we have to transcribe those. And so if there's like a dozen properties in a county and it's written on a napkin and taken a photo, we're probably not going to transcribe it unless you ask, because it's a waste of our time if no one's shopping in that county. But don't hesitate. If you know of an auction that you want to see in Parcel Fair, just let us know. We'll have a lot more to talk about in Oklahoma later, so we're going to move on and talk about Arkansas. So the 2024 season is here. The advertisements have been released. It was so exciting to get those on the website, over 6,000 advertised. And then you're waiting until July for the auctions to start. So it's kind of a hurry up and wait. At this point, you can do your research. You can take a look at these properties, scout them, and you can even shop OTC in the meantime. We had 12 added in May for the OTCs, and those are year-round purchases. But let's switch over. We'll look at Arkansas's auction calendar. So July 9th is the debut. The first auctions on that day. We have 5 on the same day. They will be in the same location. That's how they bundle these auctions, is when 4 or 5 small counties, or even just 2 small counties, have auctions, they will sometimes combine them into one place. And so on that note, let's just take a look at one. I'll show you what I mean. This is the Wyndham Hotel in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and you're going to have all those auctions on the same day in the same place. And then moving on, you get into August and then September. It's just a nice steady season of auctions all the way through the end. And lots of properties to look at here. Just, again, some of them small counties, some of them larger. So if you wanted to view one of these on the map, let's take, I think Garland was the last one we added, so let's just check it out. Yeah, so 318 properties. Yeah, I've seen this one before. We're looking at essentially a lot of vacant lots here. If I remember correctly, there's not many improved. Let's check and just get a peek. We're going to click on improvements. That takes it down to 40. So you can see if you were looking through this auction, we just saved a lot of time if you were trying to buy houses, because most of it was not houses. And so on that note, we can click on that, go look at one of these up close, and do your typical research you would do. And the auction info is right here, so letting you know where to go, when, and how much is owed in taxes. Arkansas is a bid up state, so you will bid that amount of taxes up, and interest rate does not apply. So now we're moving into some of our states that have year-round auctions, and we're just going to hit the numbers on these quickly. Ohio, we have sheriff sales throughout the year. These are basically tax deed foreclosure auctions, as well as regular foreclosure auctions that are mixed in. We're currently tracking 68 in May, 34 already in June. I should change this to say coming eventually instead of coming soon. I don't know when we're going to get to Ohio land banks, but it's on our radar. And we do have a Ohio sheriff auction intro video if you want to learn about the auctions, the sheriff auctions and how they work. But let's look at the calendar, just halfway through May at this point. A lot of auctions remaining, and they are pretty small. Some of the counties may have up to 30 or 40 properties sometimes, but plenty of the auctions have 2, 3, 4 properties, maybe even 1 property. And these are online auctions as well. So if you wanted to see what's in one of these, let's go map the 7 properties in this auction. And I'll just take the first one I see right here, and let's look at the property. Valuation is $141,000. The amount due, which is the starting bid, is $92,000. So you can see there's room for this to still be a deal, but it's possible that the bidding could go straight up to the value, which sometimes happens. If you want to register for the sale, there's a button here for more information, and then of course the auction list if you want to see that. And lastly, we do have links to the county fiscal officer report here. We'll actually pull up this property and show you some more details, kind of like a property card if you're used to that in other states. And a GIS report if you want to see this property on the county's GIS site. So there's lots you could do there to research, and the research links, and just see if that's a good property for you. So moving on to Virginia, kind of a quieter part of the year, we have 6 auctions coming up. Westmoreland on the 31st did move from May 17th. Just wanted to call that out in case you were shopping in that one. We also have photo video scouting services in Virginia, and we have a tax deed auction intro video on this channel if you want to learn about Virginia. Let's take a look at the auction calendar for Virginia. And let's pull up, we'll just take the first auction, check it out. And so this is kind of an example of the Virginia auctions. Take a look at this property. Basically, if we want to figure out this is going to be in person or not, sometimes Virginia are in person, sometimes the Virginia counties are online. So this is how you find that. And basically, it's going to be a tax deed foreclosure auction with a bid up format starting at the taxes. And what I wanted to show you is this blue button under the picture that says order photos and videos. If you want to have a property scouted, this will hook you up with one of our scouts in the area so you can arrange with them to get the property photographed. So that's all we'll touch on in Virginia. If you want to learn more about those auctions, we do have a video on that. New Jersey added a few auctions. There were 2 scheduled in May, and then some June auctions have shown up. We're looking at, is that 6, or that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more coming up. And we do have a auction video for New Jersey to help out. If you want to learn about how New Jersey auctions work, that's on our channel as well. Let's quickly see the calendar here. These are the upcoming auctions. A couple of them are noteworthy, larger. Linden is almost 700 properties. Salem is over 200, and these other ones are pretty high too. So none of the major auctions with over 1,000 properties, but these are still sizable and probably worth shopping in. And if you're new to New Jersey, it's very common that the season just sort of trickles in. If you look at last year, there were a few auctions every month, and then in December, November, and actually, well, October, November, December, there were a ton of auctions, but the rest of the year it was sort of at a trickle. So that's what we're seeing this year as well. Last May there were 5 auctions. This May we had 2. So that's par for the course. North Carolina, tons of auctions going on. We've tracked well over 500 by now. 235 in April, 161 in May. There's already over 50 auctions scheduled in June. I know there's more coming. And we do have a video that gives you an introduction to tax deed investing in North Carolina and how to handle these auctions. There are some dynamics you need to understand about. Some of the properties are just pending auction and not on the schedule yet. Some of them are scheduled auctions and ready to go. And then some of these auctions are upset bids where you can go upset the bid at a previous auction and outbid the winner. So lots to think about in North Carolina. I do recommend watching our video on North Carolina if you want to learn more about it, but you can see there's just a lot of auctions to look at. Very small in a lot of cases. Some of these are just one parcel, but plenty for you to look at in just across many, many counties. And so that if you can make it to these in-person auctions, that could be a great opportunity as a tax deed investor to pick up some properties. New Mexico is at a slow part of the year for sure. There's only 2 auctions coming up, Eddy and Mora. One of them is in May, and then the other's in June. If you want to know more about tax deed investing in New Mexico, we have a separate video that just covers these auctions in depth. So we won't cover all that again in this video, but our channel is a great resource. We have playlists for each state. So anytime you want to learn about a state, go check out the playlist for that state and see which videos are available to you. Similar story in Tennessee. This is the slow part of the year. We are tracking the Knox County auction as the biggest one coming up on the 26th of June. The date was kind of eluding us for several months, and finally the county finalized and gave us a date. So that could be that's the Knoxville area, of course. It would be a good opportunity for you as a tax deed investor. This is a 1-year redemption, 12% interest, and it's penalty interest, which is the best kind. If someone redeems after 1 month, you get 12%. It doesn't matter which month in that year they redeem, you get 12% regardless. Also, good to know in Tennessee, there are over-the-counter opportunities from the Shelby Land Bank. And those are going to be, they get added year-round, so you're going to see a nice steady flow of properties into that inventory. Indiana, we're actually between seasons right now, between the spring and the fall seasons. We're in foreclosures only because the spring auction season completed. The treasurer sales that happened in the fall, they will be posted over the summer, so we'll be releasing those as soon as they come out. And in the meantime, you can shop foreclosures. There are 51 scheduled in May, 44 more scheduled in June. It looks kind of like this on the auction calendar. We don't have to filter by foreclosures only because we're between seasons, but I'll do it anyways just to make the numbers look better. So May, you see the 51 auctions. June has 44. July already has 3 coming up. But any of these foreclosure auctions, you can click and just go straight to the map and see for yourself. There's a property in an upcoming foreclosure auction, and looks like the auction will be on June 13th at the Noble County Sheriff's Office. So that's how you figure out where to buy the property. You can register following this link or check out the auction list here. All right, moving along. Colorado has quite a few foreclosures going on right now, but that's about it. We're out of the tax lien auction season. You can get over-the-counter liens, just not a ton in the inventory. So those foreclosure auctions, 19 of those in May and 12 more scheduled in June so far. I'm sure there'll be more added. And we do have an off-season investing video to help you out in Colorado while you're waiting for that fall tax lien auction season to arrive. Arizona, we're at the deepest part of OTC season now. We've had over 20,000 new OTC liens added, over 6,000 already sold. And so you're getting to the point where the inventory is dwindling, but there's still a lot to look at. So if you're shopping in Arizona, you can just go right here and pick your county. And right now there's 7,766 in this particular county, Apache County. If you want to shop for this particular tax lien, you can investigate it using the report screen here. And for the instructions to buy, this one's a tricky one. You actually have to fill out a few forms. We have contact information for the county and everything we could find to help you out in purchasing this property. Not all of these are online purchases, so this is an example where you have to actually send the payment in and the forms as well. So the good news is this is such a manual process, it may scare some people away or just turn off some investors, so you might have less competition because of that. And that's par for the course in Arizona. You might see places where you can buy online and then other where you really have to call or mail something in, possibly even fax something. I don't even know. The instructions will talk you through it so you don't have to figure it out. Mississippi is over-the-counter season again. Those spring auctions wrapped over a month ago. So we're looking at the tax forfeited lands inventory with over 7,000 over-the-counter properties available. We just have been tracking the additions just to kind of get an idea. There's not really a month of the year where the most show up. You can see it's sort of a steady flow of properties added. I think that's because the foreclosures are being completed each month at a certain pace. So you're not going to see 1,000 properties show up overnight because the attorneys working on these foreclosures for the state, it takes time. So you'll see them spill in like this. It's a good OTC market, though. If you want to shop in Mississippi, I encourage you to figure it out as far as how those rules work. We have some videos to help you on that. But also how it's one of those states where how you buy from the inventory, you can actually become skilled at it, if that makes sense, where you actually make contacts and work with the state to purchase on a regular basis. So it could be a rewarding market if you invest your time into it. Texas, we're looking at sheriff sales. We just have a small preview of Texas that we ran in May, and we have a lot of counties to go. We're trying to add more auctions every week. So 254 counties, it's going to take us a while to get everything. But right now, we're just chasing some of these sales in a preview mode that show you that we're just scratching the surface. But please stay tuned. There are going to be many more auctions to come. Louisiana, similar story. We track auctions by Civic Source right now that are pending auction. You can start these auctions and kick off the pending auctions by placing a deposit that will begin the bidding. Read and understand these auction rules. They're not the most straightforward things in the world. They don't really act like any other state that I've seen. So be sure you get educated in Louisiana before you spend any money there. It's very unique. We also have over-the-counter properties. For example, the New Orleans Redevelopment Authority is sort of a land bank, and we're going to keep adding some land banks just to give you more variety in how you can buy there. And South Carolina, the coldest part of the year for South Carolina is summer because there's nothing going on auction-wise. We're literally just as far away from the auction season. We will, at the end of the summer, start to see some lists show up, maybe even by September. So we will have a nice auction season coming up, but right now it's kind of quiet in South Carolina. You can always prepare for those auctions coming up by watching our South Carolina auctions video. And on that note, we are at the end of our news post for this week. So thanks for watching. I really hope this was helpful for you trying to navigate this 250,000 new properties that have shown up in the system very quickly. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We have a contact form on the website. I'll put it in the video description. You can reach out in the YouTube comments. And we just love to dialogue and chat about these things. We learn from you. You learn from us. It's a great opportunity for everybody. So again, reach out, ask us questions. Please subscribe to the channel so you can see the videos as they're coming out. And like this video if you want to help us out there too. Thanks a lot.